Much has been said about awakening. Countless books have been written on the subject. What is more, there are countless books listed on Amazon that invoke the most popular of awakening cliches in their very title, The Great Awakening. Indeed, with subjects ranging from QAnon and UFO disclosure to star seeds and Iran, dozens of books seem to suggest that the Great Awakening is either imminent or has already arrived. As the name implies, the notion of an awakening of any kind, and most certainly one which is great, suggests a state of sleep, or at the very least slumber, which is interrupted by a newfound awareness, lucidity, activity, and potential. Of course, the dozens of books dedicating themselves to the topic of the Great Awakening are not about the literal act of waking up from physical sleep. Awakening is employed as an allegory for stirring from a different kind of slumber, such as that of the famous racehorse Seabiscuit, who suddenly comes alive as he bursts into full gallop, as in the film. Practically a textbook definition of how it feels. Naturally, it follows that we think of ourselves from that point onward as being awake. But are we really? When we think about what it means to be awake, we naturally contrast being awake with its opposite, being asleep. This, unfortunately, establishes a false dichotomy in our minds about the nature of awakening. The rational mind not only prefers the simplicity and expedience of the dialectic, its very operating system is based on it, and asleep or awake is just another in an infinite series of expressions of binary duality. Like the ones and zeros on which all digital technology is based, like any artificial intelligence, our rational minds default to a basic understanding of being awake as no longer being asleep, a switch that is either on or off. This is an enticing mental trap. Witness in your conscious imagination the slow gradation of darkness to dawn light and eventually to daylight proper. Even the sun needs time to slowly rise from its slumber before it can reach its zenith at high noon. Despite its ultimate foundations in binary duality, mechanical nature, in all its analog expressions, operates not as a series of on-off switches, but rather as an infinite spectrum of dimmer switches. Now, the thing about a dimmer switch is that it does not have an on or off state. There is a point when there is no light, the off position. Turn or slide the dimmer switch but a millimeter, and suddenly there is light, the on position. Most certainly, upon activating the dimmer switch, the room may no longer be entirely in the dark as it was before, but with the dimmer switch only slightly engaged, can we honestly claim the space is completely illuminated? Or is it still mostly in the dark? Before a plane can take off from a runway, it must achieve the minimum speed necessary to become airborne. But getting into the air is only the first step. Sure, technically, flight is achieved the moment the landing gear leaves the tarmac, and there might have been a time when such minimal standards were sufficient to claim a successful flight took place, when Orville and Wilbur Wright were pioneering man-made flight at Kitty Hawk, for instance. But since those fateful days, aviation has advanced somewhat, and the minimum standards for air travel along with it. Today, the threshold for what is considered a viable, reliable, and relatively safe flight is orders of magnitude what it once was. No reasonable person would contest this point. And yet, when it comes to awakening consciousness, we are all still at Kitty Hawk, marveling at our short-lived bouts of intuitive knowing, genuine lucidity, true objective insight, or subjective psychedelic trips. Who among this humanity can honestly say they have reached conscious cruising altitude and speed? Not just during the waking hours of the day, but all night as well. Who among us can see into the higher dimensions of reality at all times? Are we even aware of our higher self? Able to receive practical information, wisdom, and guidance from our innermost being at all times? The point is, for most of us, the moment we experience an untangling of a knot we had previously been entangled in, we believe ourselves to be newly empowered, armed with a length of string. But we never honestly consider asking ourselves the age-old philosophical question, just how long is a piece of string? What is more, we witness what appears to be an enormous ball of string growing in the world, and, adding our own bit of string to it, we declare ourselves to be part of the great enlengthening of humanity. Naturally, the rational mind thinks thus. It leaps to its own defense and exploits every opportunity it can for its own self-aggrandizement. Our I cannot resist taking possession of our newfound bit of string, even if it is only 3 inches in length. And so, as soon as we experience some liberation from entanglement, we become attached to our bit of string, identify with the great enlengthening, seek validation through other self-styled enlengthened ones, and partake in an echo chamber where together we dream up of all manner of rationalizations to shoo away the harsh reality that each and every last one of us is in possession of a bit of string which is at most a few inches in length. Scientists, theorists, futurists, intellectuals, politicians, theologians, coaches, gurus, influencers et al., touting the enormous profundity of the great awakening of humanity, while dancing around the objective fact that the practical share of said awakening in the lives of individuals is minimal at best and ultimately self-serving at worst. There are industries worth billions that depend on selling this or that great awakening to which countless pitchmen and women have attached themselves like so many ticks on a deer's back. All mainstream and social media platforms are infested with this parasitic variety of huckster, hawking their oh-so-seductive yet too-good-to-be-true silver bullets, magic pills, and every conceivable kind of awakening-related snake oil you can imagine. You know this from your experience to be true. And yet, even after all that, you may still believe that none of it applies to you, to your awakening, and the brand of great awakening you identify with and count yourself a part of. All who experience an awakening feel that way at some point, for it is the very nature of awakening that the ego mind covets and wants to possess, corrupt, exploit, and make fall asleep. I certainly experienced it. More than once, in fact, I found myself falling for each of several different industries' unique brand of awakening: transhumanist AI, conspiracy, wokeness, and the New Age. In the quest to unravel the threads needed for my own awakening, each time I found myself becoming more entangled in the very string that I was supposed to be untangling and enlengthening, if not fully enlengthened already. So, I descended deeper into the dungeons of my own delusions, where my quest would finally take a turn. Part 1 of this book recounts my journey through psychological hell. Part 2 shares revelations from hell concerning the true nature and ultimate purpose behind false awakenings, the great awakening of humanity. Finally, Part 3 seeks to share self-evident experiential knowledge of how to disentangle from what keeps us asleep in the dark while dreaming ourselves to be awake, so we may escape the psychological hell of hypnosis and ignorance and truly awaken into the light.